We have covered a lot of ground. I'll be the first to admit that we've covered a lot. We have talked about family, rebellion, flood, Israel, kings, Messiah. Today we're going to talk about redemption. And in a way, I think of that as just a big fancy word that means making something good out of something bad, redeeming it, right? We can all think of examples of that in our life. But even though as we've broken these up in smaller stories, some of it is really still hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
Same for you?
Yeah, very much so. You know, it's like you may have heard us say a couple of times, like we lean into the things that we do know on the way to understanding maybe some of the things we don't. I don't understand how prayer was really working for me when I was getting sober, but it was like it just did. And it was part of it not knowing is what made it in. And there's a reality too, like if you could understand 100% of everything about God, that puts God on the same level that you are. And if he's on the same level as me, he ain't helping me stay sober. Like I needed a power greater than myself to be able to stay sober. So if I want him to be greater than me, that's me having to realize there's going to be things that I'm not going to necessarily understand. And then there's a practical part of this too. Like I remember when I was living in Georgia, we had these like homes and they all were really similar kind of built. It was one of those neighborhoods where everything kind of looked the same. And I know for a fact that my next door neighbor, Todd, had the same garage door opener that I had because I was in his garage and I saw it. Like it looked exactly the same. The remotes look exactly the same. And I'm sure people that are smarter than me are going to watch this and be like, well, you're an idiot. This is why this worked. But all I know is that when I pushed my button, it never opened Todd's garage. And when Todd pushed his button, it never opened mine. They only opened those individual garage doors. But I'll be honest, if you think I'm sitting in my driveway in the pouring down rain saying, well, I'm not going to use this thing until I can understand how it works. Like there ain't no way. Like I'm going to use what works for me on the way to understanding. And that's some of the kind of the mindset we look at when we try to understand scripture. Like I don't necessarily understand all of the stuff that's going on here, but I'm going to lock in on the things that are helping me. I'm going to lock in on the things that are going to help me stay sober. And I'm going to sit in those. And it's kind of like this rope, too. Like we can look at this rope and you see and it's like there's kind of this, like help me Jody, like what is this? Like this is
this is all life before where I am now.
Yeah.
Or you are now. Or you are now.
So man, if you're in rehab, like then you're in the knot. So you just need to know, like you can feel it. You can feel what it's like to be in the knot. Like, as you're all locked up and there's so much stuff that's going on and you feel like you're twisted and pulled in so many directions, or maybe you're in a place wherever you're at right now, like you feel like you're in the knot. But man, it was like everything that was going on before was here. And then there's this moment that you're in right now. But man, on the other side of this is the whole rest of your life. And so much of me getting sober, what was difficult was I felt like I was going to have to get rid of substances which were helping me deal with the emotional discomfort that I felt, and that I was gonna have to go back to living that miserable life before. It was like there was this, I'm not sober, I'm looking for something to change the way I feel. Substances quit working, I'm gonna have to go back to that miserable life. Like, no, bro, like what is coming after this in sobriety is a whole new life. That it was a whole quality of life that I didn't know I could get access to. One where I'm at peace. I'm able to handle things that pop and things that come up and they don't derail me like they used to. And I have tools I've never had before. And so, man, on the other side of this knot is a life that, man, you did not know you could live. And like I talked to my friend, Robbie, he said, Matt, if I'd have known that I could feel this good, I'd have got sober a long time ago.
And that is a word picture of redemption right there, isn't it? But we can't, in our efforts to fix, manage, and control all the things, there is no way we could get to the point where Robbie was at. Like, that is the beauty of doing life with Jesus, that he has already, we read in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so that whoever believes in him won't perish but have everlasting life. But we forget what comes after that a lot of the time. John 3:17, we get so wrapped up in oh yeah, it's a great story. It sounds nice in theory. But John 3:17 reminds us Jesus came not to condemn, but to save. And that is something we cannot do for ourselves. And there's grace in that. The big question in regards to redemption, though, right now is what do I do between now and eternity? What do I do between now and heaven? Because like you said, I think in the last session or a couple sessions before, we all know life's not forever. We all, regardless of what we believe, we all can agree on the fact that there's death, right?
100%.
Life ends.
100%.
So what do we do while this clock of life is running down? A lot of times I know you've met with people just like I have, folks that think that once Jesus is a part of their lives, that it's kind of like hitting the easy button. That's like, okay, I did the right thing. I accepted him. Now I'm on easy street. And nowhere in the Bible does it tell us that. You know, if in fact, it's the opposite. The Bible tells us not if, but when there will be times of trial and suffering. In phase 1, we wrote out Romans 5:3-5, that we can rejoice in our sufferings, which sounds foreign, right? To rejoice in our sufferings. But that's another reminder, hard times are coming. It's no indication of our quality of life or worth as a person. Trials and sufferings are part of life. And in our worlds of wanting to fix, manage, and control, we can see that. Because if it were up to us, we would not be sitting in the seats that we're in right now,
That's real.
right?
That's real.
Like there's obviously something not working. Even Adam and Eve, who lived in a perfect paradise, were convinced to give up what they already had. Spiritual warfare is around us all the time. It was around them. It's around us. We can't see it, but the Bible tells us it's there. Ephesians 6 Verse 12 reminds us that for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Again, those are things we can't see, but the Bible tells us they're there. I had a really interesting conversation with one of my nephews not too long ago. He was about 4 years old at the time, and he got real quiet. He loves to build things and put things together, and we'll just kind of play it, pretend in imagination, all the things. But he got really quiet, and he finally looked at me and he said, "Aunt Jody, I'm mad at God." And I said, "Why? Why are you mad at God?" And he said, "'Cause I can't see him." And I thought about that for a minute, and I was like, that makes me think of a lot of other things I can't see. I said, "What are some other things you can't see in your life?" And he sat there for a minute, and I said, "Well, what about the wind? Can you see the wind?" And he said, "No." And I said, "But do you know the wind is there?" And he thought for a minute, and he said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "How do you know the wind is there?" He's like, "Well, it blows the leaves around the yard, or, mom's hair gets messy when she steps out into the wind, or I can feel it hit me in the face on a really windy day." And I said, so just like the wind, we can't see it, but we see the effects of it, right? We know it's there because of what we see that it does. And the same is true with God. We can't see him, but we can see him at work. We can see him in creation, and what he has made, and in the way we relate to other people. The same is true with those evil forces around us, though, too. The Bible tells us that the enemy, Satan, prowls like a roaring lion, waiting for opportunities to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's not shared to put us in a place of fear or to make us shrink back, but just to remind us it's real, it's there, and we want to acknowledge that so that we can be on our guard and prepared with scripture, with prayer, with the things of Jesus that are prepared for those battles. As we kind of wrap up this story of redemption, the big bottom line is to remember that Jesus has already won. Death has been beaten. Jesus has won. But what do we do in the here and now, between now and eternity? So I want you to picture for a minute. Picture that you are getting ready to run a race. And let's be honest, I'm not a runner. Okay, so we're all pretending. Those of you that are runners, great job. Glad you can do that. But we're getting ready to run a race. So if you were going to run a race, what's the very first thing you would put on? If you were going
Underwear.
Okay, let's pretend you're dressed and ready to walk out the door.
Okay.
Like, are you going in your slides?
No, probably put on tennis shoes. Running shoes. Okay.
Running shoes.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
You said first thing I put on. I'm like,
okay.
Well,
Okay. Running shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you going to do with those running shoes? Are you going to leave your shoestrings loose?
No, I'm tying them.
Okay. Yeah. Tying them. I'd probably maybe even double knot them because Mine
You're
would
over
probably
it.
come untied and I'd be falling all over the
Yeah.
place. So we're going to lace up our shoes and we are going to go run a race. And let's say we're running a race and it's solo. You have nobody running with you. You have no running coach. You have nobody waiting at the finish line for you.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really easy let's pretend it's a long race. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be really easy to be like,
Talk myself into quitting.
yeah, because there's nobody here that's going to know.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I'm just done and
Yeah.
I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you fall down? Is there going to be anybody there with a first aid kit?
No. But
Okay.
also,
What if you get thirsty?
I'm gonna stay thirsty. There's nothing to
Yeah.
drink.
Nobody bringing you water. Nobody cheering you on to the end.
It's like
Okay.
a pretty miserable race.
It does. Same stretch of road. There could be potholes or things. Okay. Let's shift gears a minute and let's think about you're running that race, same route, different circumstances. This time you have somebody with you. Okay. Can your shoes still come untied?
Yeah.
Yep. Could you still trip and fall?
Yeah.
Could you still get thirsty? Could you still want to quit?
Yeah.
All the things. Circumstances are still the same. But instead, this time you have somebody, when you want to quit, somebody's cheering you on. When you fall down and mess up your knee, somebody's there with a first aid kit. When you're thirsty, somebody's there to bring you water. When it's,
awesome.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
that's
there is
great.
somebody there with you. That is life with Jesus. When you do life with Jesus, you are not left to your own to just figure it out. He is there to do life with you, that as you are running the race before you, as the Bible tells us, our life is a race. We've got from now till the end of our life to go. He doesn't want you to struggle and do it alone. He wants to be there with you to get you to the finish line. And to give you one last picture, a lady gave this word illustration to me one time. She said, imagine that Jesus has run ahead. He's crossed the finish line, won the medal. He's come back and put that medal around your neck for you to wear as you finish the race.
Wow.
That is life with Jesus. He has come so that you can have life and have it to the full with a peace that cannot be explained any other way than it is from the Lord.
I love that. Man, that's such a great picture. And how many of the people in recovery that we do this with, like how that impacts and matters to us. I know the fellowship and the connection relationship I have has been a huge part of me being able to stay sober this time. And man, we're so grateful you're on this journey, with us, looking at these kind of big overview pieces of the Bible, that it's one big story. It's God's story, and my story fits in God's story. And we really just want to connect you to Jesus as a part of your long-term recovery. And these things are meant to help us look at the Bible and understand pieces of the Bible, but it's not meant to get rid of the other Bible study that you do, but it's something that you can lock onto. But our hope is that you've been able to find and identify different pieces of kind of how the story of God is going, to see how your story fits into God's story. Man, and we would love for you to continue this journey with us.